Welcome to episode 14 of Dialogues About Death with your host, Chris Miller.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
Welcome.
morning. Welcome. Today is July 26th, and we are talking about we're having kind of a mailbag, a grab bag moment here on the show today. We're talking about how to get clarity on the unexpected. And there's lots of questions that have come in from our viewers, and we thought we would answer them. And today is a very short uh, show. So we're going to get in, get out. So if you guys have any
All
questions, a
right.
little housekeeping here. If you have any questions, we'd love to answer them live. If you think this information would bless someone, we'd love for you to share it on your socials. That'd be awesome. But again, we'd love to hear that you're here as well, so we can say hi live to you. So does that sound good, Chris?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And before also, I want to another housekeeping is our next show will be August 9th. So
Okay.
hopefully you guys can come back for that. We're hoping everyone's having a lovely summer.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've been doing a little traveling ourselves this summer. That's why one show a month right now. And then when we get back into the fall, we'll hit it hard.
Exactly. I love it. Okay. So let's get into the first question, Chris, because
Okay.
there is, people have asked, there's a lot of myths that circulate. And where this show is to debunk those myths.
Sure.
And so the first question came in, and there's a little bit of some caveat. So they asked how to determine the timing of the funeral. Is there a certain amount of days that you need to schedule your funeral after your loved one has passed? Is there
Sure.
protocol? Is there rules? So anyways, I'm going to go off screen. If Chris, you can answer that and all the different situations, that would be really helpful.
Sure. Sure. All right. Good morning. Well, let me tell you a little bit about scheduling services. Over the years, times have changed a little bit. Years ago, when your loved one would pass away, we would just go ahead and have them come in, sit down, make some arrangements, and schedule a funeral within like 3 to 5 days. Things were very kind of simple and streamlined. We'd be able to make all the connections with the churches and the cemeteries and all the ministers and musicians and things to get things set. But as time has gone on, things are a little bit more complex these days, especially with families being all over the country. So everybody doesn't really live in the same town anymore. So now typically a family is taking anywhere from maybe 7 to 10 to 14 days to schedule a funeral service. It gives us a little bit more time. It allows families to plan, kind of get the word out, and there's really no rush. Years ago, the myth was that you had to really bury somebody within 24 to 48 hours of their death. We didn't have really the technology of like the embalming, the preservation of holding someone as long. So they were always burying people right away. But with the embalming and the technology that we have here today, we can hold somebody a little bit longer. And also, we have a little bit more time to plan. Sometimes there's things outside the funeral home, though, that allows us to take more time too. So it would be like working with a family that has a veteran and working with the National Cemetery. The National Cemetery, we have one, we're fortunate enough to have one here in Riverside, California. So it's only about 25, 30 minutes from us. And we can work with them to inter their veteran's loved one into the cemetery. But sometimes they're dealing with funeral homes all around Southern California. So what we need to do is work with them, and we might be scheduled 2 or 3, 4 weeks out because there's so many other veterans and so many other funeral homes that are wanting to use the National Cemetery. So we have to work with that, and families need to understand that using the cemetery is free for a veteran and their spouse, but the caveat is that you have to wait several weeks for us to use the privilege of being buried there for their loved one. So those are some areas where typically used to be 3 to 5 days. These days, it's now about 7 to 10, maybe up to 14 days. And if you're a veteran, it could be 14 to 21 days till we're actually doing a funeral service. Then sometimes families will ask me, well, can we plan a service 2 or 3 months from now? And we can. So what we do is maybe like this summer, we've had a lot of memorial services this summer. So families have made plans to come out, maybe to visit other family members, and then we'll have a gathering maybe 2 or 3 months after the person may have died. Sometimes that's hard on the grieving process, but it's convenient for the family and those that are trying to come together to share their loved ones' memories and to celebrate their life. So there is no right or wrong in the timing of a funeral, of preparing for that. Sometimes, though, there are outside circumstances that limit or extend the time that we have to actually put a funeral on.
I love that there's no strong and fast rules. That's not the expression I'm looking for. But yeah, it gives a little more flexibility. Also, I've been involved in a lot of family friends and passed away, and having more time gives you time to like gather all the pictures and the videos that everyone wants to put together for the memorial. And I kind of like having a little bit of a delay. So that's nice that it's not required to be
You
so
know,
soon.
I would agree with you, Mary, because years ago we didn't have the technology of all the photographs at our hands and stuff, and people didn't take as many pictures because not everybody had cameras. Today we have phones and we have videos, and we have all those things, and so people like to put all those types of tributes together for their loved one.
Yeah.
So it is giving. I think a good 7 to 10 days is really an acceptable time frame for really putting a service together.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And I know of one idea, if anyone is in the planning stage right now, is that there actually are services that, like a Google Drive, that everyone can add their photos into one place. And then if they hire a videographer or someone who's putting this together, or a photo book, or just one of the family members volunteers to do it, it makes it easy so that everyone feels a part of it and they know that their
Yes.
pictures are going to be included in that. So that's really nice.
You know,
Hey, before we
we
go to the next question, we do have
yeah,
some people watching. So thanks, you guys, Steve Areno and Christina and
nice.
Kathy and Haley. That's so nice of you guys to join us.
Beautiful.
If you guys have
Welcome.
any suggestions or ideas of things that you've witnessed of people in their putting together their funeral, we would love to hear about it, because I think that's always nice to hear. Okay, so let's go to the next question.
You
Um,
bet.
so we just talked about the timing of funeral. This is a question that comes up, and it kind of we're as we were talking about it pre-show, it brought up some memories that you had, Chris. Because
Yeah,
people have said, "Oh my gosh, I can't plan a funeral on a Sunday." And why is that? Has that been a myth, or is there a reason behind why people don't think they can plan a funeral on a Sunday? So I'm going to let you answer that.
sure. So a few years back, we were talking. I was talking to some friends, and we were talking about funerals and trying to get people together for a service. And they're like, "Well, do you ever do services on Sunday?" And I go, "Not really. It's really hard to get a monk on a Sunday. It's hard to get any priest or clergy on a Sunday because Sunday's the day that most people go to worship. They'll go to church, go to synagogue. And so it's hard to get a clergy member to come out to a funeral home to do a service on a Sunday. That's not to say that you can't do a service on a Sunday. Our funeral home is available on a Sunday. It's just trying to find someone to perform the ceremony for you. So if family has a friend, or maybe they do have a close clergy member friend that they have that is not preaching or worshiping on that Sunday that they wish to do their service, then there could be that possibility. So our funeral home is available, but it doesn't limit the family not to have a service in their backyard or off-site facility where they're not in a church, because we definitely don't do funerals in places of worship on a Sunday, because those are meant for the time that the congregation of the churches kind of come together. So I know that we've never done a service on a Sunday in a church or synagogue type of temple, for that matter. But we have done them on a Sunday at the funeral home, and we have done them off-site at like people's homes on a Sunday. But it's very rare. We typically people will have gatherings on a Sunday if we're doing like maybe a viewing or visitation because people are off from work. So it does make it convenient for people to get together on a Sunday. But we typically don't have a formal celebration or a ceremony on a Sunday. So it was kind of a funny question because when it was brought up a couple years ago, like, why don't we do services on a Sunday? And I'm like, I go, it's because we just can't get the clergy people to come out to do a service.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, but what's nice is there is, as you said, there's no rules to how you have a funeral. You don't have to have a clergy member. You can have it be a
No,
private, just like anyone can marry someone if they go online and get a to get
that's
a
right.
to become a online what do you call it? When
Um,
someone marries you, you have to have a what is it? A light like a marriage
you have to have like a
officiant? Officiant?
officiant, a license to officiate.
Officiate, exactly.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it's nice to know. But we also have Sherilyn who joined us.
Good
Great
morning.
day. Good morning. Good morning.
You
I love
know, one thing I was going to say, Mary, in regards to maybe families doing their own ceremony, because sometimes they'll call a pastor, or even we'll try to help a family get somebody to do a service, but they don't really know that person. So even if there's a relative or a family that loves to speak and doesn't have that anxiety of getting in front of people, it really makes it very more meaningful, even
Yes.
if you have someone from the family or a close friend lead your celebration of life or your funeral service for your loved one.
Yes, that's so true, and I think, it means more to the people involved. They just can bring up memories, and,
Yeah,
it seems a little more natural, so I love that. That is awesome. Okay,
yeah,
we're coming to our last question.
sure,
Let's get into that. Alright, so this was, one that w you had a few stories, to share. People are asking, "How do you handle unexpected situations?"
sure,
Things that really you just can't make this stuff up because it just happens
sure.
in real life. So share a couple of your memories. I think you one was that had to do with a car in a grocery store, and another one
Sure.
had to do with the Notebook. So
Yes.
just as a reminder.
You
So
know,
I'll let
oh,
you answer those.
sounds great. So, people ask me questions all the time. Being in the funeral business, are like one question before I get into my stories is like, oh, do people move after they die, or have they ever like woken up from you and stuff like that? And I'd have to say, from my personal experiences over 25, 30 years, I've never had anybody like wake up or come back to life after they've died. Have I seen bodies move or twitch? No, but right immediately after death, there are natural gases inside the body that if you turn or twist a body, they might burp or belch or make some unsoundly noises, but nothing so crazy that you see like in the movies and stuff. But there are some other stories I'd like to just share with you today that are kind of cute. One of them was probably about 25, 30 years ago, and I was just getting into the business. And this lady and her husband had gone to the grocery store that day. And so she left her husband in the car and she went into the grocery store. And when she came back after 20, 30 minutes of her grocery shopping, she came back and she found that her husband had passed away in the passenger seat of the car. So instead of taking him to the hospital or calling the ambulance there in the parking lot, she decided to drive him right to the front door of the funeral home because she didn't want to incur any additional costs with the hospital and the ambulance and stuff. So she pulled her car up to the front door of the funeral home and she walked in, and my dad was there. And she said, my husband had just passed away. Can you help me? And so my dad said, well, where is he at? And she goes, well, he's out front in the car. And my dad really didn't know what to do. And so we did have to call the coroner's office because since it was kind of an unusual situation, we called the coroner's office and we got it cleared. And so then we had the lady drive around to the back of the funeral home, and then we were able to help her remove her husband from the car and bring him into the funeral home. So it was just one of those unusual situations. Doesn't happen all the time. I don't know if it's ever happened to anybody other in the funeral business before, but it was kind of just a cute story. They were just an elderly couple, and she just didn't know where to turn. So she knew that their funeral plans were with Thomas Miller Mortuary. So she said, well, I might as well just take my husband there. So that was just one of those cute kind of stories that you don't hear all the time, but it's something that was it did happen to us.
That's sweet.
Yeah,
That's very I can only imagine come like, "Honey, you wait in the car. I'm just gonna go grab some milk." And then you
yeah,
come out, it's like, "Oh my gosh." So obviously they
yeah,
were advanced in years, and so it wasn't a
yeah.
huge surprise to her. So
No, no.
no, no. So okay, so to finish up the show, we're right at the 15-minute mark, so we're doing so good. I want to share the Notebook story because
Sure,
that was so dear, and the romantic in me thought that was a very sweet story.
yeah.
So I'm gonna let you answer that.
Sure. So I don't know. Many of you might have seen the movie The Notebook. And it's a story, a love story of two young people that fell in love, and they grow old together. And the wife becomes elderly, has dementia, and the husband is with her by her side all the way through her death. And he's there with her in her bed, and she passes away, and then he passes away too. Well, we've actually had that happen to us here at Thomas Miller Mortuary. We had an elderly couple. They were in a board and care, and they were side by side in their beds, being taken care of by their caregivers. And they were in their early 90s, and they'd lived their whole life. They had been married like over 50 years together, and they spent their whole lives together, never apart. And one morning we had received the call that the wife had passed away, and it was early in the morning. It was 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and 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 the family had come in. We had all the pre-arrangements already made, so everything was kind of in order because they knew that they were both elderly. And the family, when they came in, said, "Hey, take care of their mom's arrangements." Said, Dad's pretty close. Also, we don't know if it could be several weeks or a month before Dad goes. And later that evening, it was like 12 hours later, we had gotten a call from the family again, and they said their dad had just passed away. So it was something where this couple, this husband and wife, lived their whole life together, and then they died less than 24 hours apart, and it was just touching. And we were able to do like a double funeral for the family, since their parents had died basically a day apart, because one was just after midnight, so it was like a day apart on the death certificate, but it was less than 24 hours. But we were able to come together. They were able to bring closure and tell stories and share videos and tributes about both of them. And what a tribute and what a touching story that they lived their whole life together, and they end their life together. And it was just, again, it doesn't happen all the time, but it was one of those stories that had happened here at our funeral home. And again, this was about 20 years ago. It was when I had just gotten into the business when that happened. It's just one of those stories that you'll always remember because it doesn't happen all the time. So it's something I just wanted to share. One of those unusual circumstances that people always ask about. It's like, whatever happens in this business? So those are a couple of those stories that are just a little unusual that I wanted to share today.
I love it. That I know it sounds weird, but it's romantic. They didn't want to live
It is.
without each other. So,
Yeah.
oh, so sweet. Awesome. All right, so exactly, true love.
Yeah.
I love it. Haley also said that she loves that movie, right? It's an enduring memory. Yeah, and how sweet for the kids too to know that their parents couldn't live without each other. So, that's awesome.
That's right.
That's
Yep.
awesome. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Chris. Those are some very interesting questions that came in, and thank you for
Yeah.
answering those. I wanted to make sure everybody knew that our next show is on August 9th. And so
Fantastic.
we look forward to that. I hope you guys are enjoying your summer. And again, Chris is the funeral director at Thomas Miller Mortuary and Crematory. And if you need any of his services, of his wonderful team, he was bragging
Yes.
about his team,
Got a
the
great.
Corona Chapel, just for the audio version of this, if you want to get a hold of their local Corona Chapel, it is 951-737-3244. And the La Sierra Memorial Chapel in Riverside is 951-687-0551. But you also have Walker Family Funeral Services and the Cremation Society of Southern California as well.
Yes. Yes, we do.
Yes,
We have many locations to serve many types of families at many different value points.
I love it. Exactly. Ways to save even more money to do that. So I love that you have different options for family. So in fact, we
Yeah.
had talked about that. We're going to do a couple, maybe a show on each of the facilities, and so talking
Yes.
about the different differences of them, which is awesome. All right. So
Yes.
Chris, thank you so much again for another wonderful show. Again,
Bet.
this was episode 14 of Dialogues About Death: How to Get Clarity on the Unexpected. So until August 9th, you guys have a blessed week.
Right.
And Chris, thank you so much for all your time.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a wonderful day. God
Take
bless.
care. Bye
Bye.
bye.